Hi, welcome to Movies Explained. Today, I will explain a movie called Get Out. Get Out is a 2017 American horror film. The story follows a young black man who discovers unexpected secrets when he meets his white girlfriend's family. If you haven't watched it yet, watch it first. Watch out and take care, there are spoilers ahead. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up, comment on what your favorite part was, and subscribe to our channel for more. Enjoy the video and let's start the story. In the first scene, Andre, a young black man, walks alone across a well-maintained suburban street at night. A small sports car approaches and begins following him. Andre becomes agitated, exclaims, "F this stuff," and turns around to briskly go back the way he came. When he turns around to see what the car did, he notices that it is still parked, but the door is open. A figure in a medieval helmet appears out of nowhere, strikes Andre, knocks him out, and drags his body to the automobile. Rose brings pastries and coffee to her photographer lover Chris's flat. They're getting set to visit her family for the weekend, and he's worried that they won't realize she's seeing a black man. She assures him that, despite the fact that they will probably say some silly things, they are really progressive. If he could, her father would have voted for Obama a third time. Chris inquires whether he is the only black man she has ever dated, to which she responds that he is, but that her parents will be fine. Chris reaches for a cigarette on the way to her parents' house, but Rose takes it and throws it out the window, warning that her parents would be furious if she dated a smoker. Chris phones his TSA agent pal Rod at the local airport, reminding him to look after his dog and not feed him human food. Rod chastises Chris for dating a white woman and tells him that visiting the white people is a terrible idea. He also flirts with Rose, which Rose finds endearing when Chris becomes envious. A deer darts out in front of the automobile and is hit while they're engrossed in discussion and not paying attention to the road. They pull over to look into it and phone the cops, who inquire as to why they're in the neighborhood. Rose informs them that they are paying a visit to her relatives who reside nearby. The police request Chris's identification, but Rose intervenes, claiming that he doesn't need it because he wasn't driving. The officer lets them go, and Chris tells Rose that she was hot for standing up for him in front of the racist cop. Chris and Rose make their way to Rose's parents' house. Dean Armitage, her father, is a charming neurosurgeon who, indeed, informs Chris that if he could, he would have voted for Obama a third time. Missy, her mother, is a weirdly frigid hypnotherapist. She offers to use hypnosis to cure Chris of his nicotine addiction, but he isn't keen on having strangers in his thoughts. Walter the groundskeeper, and Georgina the maid housekeeper, are the Armitage's on-site black assistants. Dean admits that it appears to be a bad situation, with two wealthy white people having two black workers, but they were hired to look after his parents, and Dean would have felt bad if he had let them go. Both Walter and Georgina have a strange aura about them. They have a rigid, false Stepford civility about them. They both speak in an antiquated vernacular as well. Chris is given a tour of the house by Dean, who also shows him old family photos. Dean claims that his father was a track runner who was beaten out for a spot in the 1936 Olympics in front of Hitler by Jesse Owens. While this was disappointing for his father, it was nonetheless encouraging to see Hitler's Aryan ideals disproved. Rose's brother, who will be joining them later, is also represented through photos. He's a surgeon, like his father, but he's had some difficulties. Afternoon tea is shared by the family. Missy stirs her tea and taps her spoon 3 times against the teacup, which will become super important later. Chris's parents are a topic of discussion for Missy. Chris alleges that his father abandoned him when he was a child, and that his mother died when he was 11 after being hit by a car. Missy advises Georgina to go lie down and get some rest when she short-circuits while pouring tea. The Armitages inform Rose that their big party is tomorrow. They tell her it's the same day every year, and she's astonished. Jeremy, Rose's brother, comes. He's a spoiled, privileged kid who's aggressive. A drunken man was at supper that night. Jeremy begins to speak with Chris about MMA combat, claiming that Chris would be a natural because he comes from a strong family. He wants to spar, but Chris says he doesn't allow drunks to pretend fight. Dean and Missy inform Jeremy that he should probably go to bed. Rose apologizes for her family, and Chris and Rose retire to their room to sleep. Chris wakes up in the middle of the night and decides to slip out for a cigarette. Outside, he notices something charging at him in the distance. Walter is calling. He heads straight for Chris, but does a U-turn at the last second and flees in a different way. Georgina is peering out a window within the house. It turns out she's staring at her own image rather than Chris. Chris decides to return inside once she changes her hair. Missy startles Chris by turning on a light before he can return to his bed. She tells him that smoking is a horrible habit and offers to help him quit once more. He sits, mocking the idea of hypnosis, oblivious to the fact that she is progressively hypnotizing him with her teaspoon as a focus object. She transports him back to the night his mother died when he was 11 years old, and he tells her that his mother didn't come home from work, and he was too afraid to do anything, like contact the cops, that would make it true, so he sat uncomfortably scratching his nails into his bedposts while watching TV. Chris is doing the same thing now, pressing his nails into the chair's arms. She tells him to sink by tapping his teacup 3 times with her spoon. Chris, then 11 years old, sinks into his bed, while Chris, now in his 40s, sinks into darkness, seeing himself and Missy high above. His body, which is paralyzed in the chair, has lost awareness. He checks his phone first thing in the morning. Rod texted Chris a photo of himself acting as if he was giving his dog booze. He plugs in his battery because it is low. Chris informs Rose that he believes her mother drugged him the night before. He has only hazy memories of the event. For the big celebration, the Armitage's wealthy friends arrive. Many elderly white individuals make improper comments to Chris, such as how he has a good build, that because Tiger Woods golfs, he must have a good swing as well, that black males are better in bed, and so on. Chris slips away and meets a blind man named Jim Hudson, who claims that everyone at the party is stupid. Chris is well conscious of his status as an art dealer. Jim declares that he admires Chris's work. He understands the absurdity of a blind art dealer, but assures him that he has a fantastic helper who excels at describing works. Chris's eye is something he admires. Jim claims that he tried photography but was never particularly adept at it. Chris returns to mingling with the visitors and encounters yet another black man. He's Chris's age, and Chris tries to bond with him, but he, like Walter and Georgina, is rigid and unnatural. Chris, on the other hand, notices something about him that he recognizes. The astute observer will realize that this is Andre from the first scene. Chris chooses to check in with Rod once again, and his phone gets unplugged once more. He connects it, dials Rod's number, and tells him everything that's happened. Rod advises him that white people enjoy having sex slaves and that he should leave. When Rose locates Chris, he expresses his dissatisfaction with the situation and informs her that his phone has been disconnected once more. She assures him that he is only being paranoid because he is in an unpleasant situation. She exits when he accepts. Rod instructs Chris to snap a photo of the black man and see if he recognizes him. Georgina blocks Chris from leaving, apologizing for unplugging his phone when dusting the nightstand. She raised it up while dusting the nightstand, and when it came unplugged, she didn't want to tamper with it any further. He claims that everything is great and that he didn't mean to expose her. She has no idea what I'm talking about. As a result, he clarifies that he did not want to put her in danger. She acts strangely and sheds a single tear when she tells him that the Armitages treat her as if she were family. Chris returns to the street and uses his phone to take a picture of the familiar black man, but he forgets to turn off the flash. The dude shifts as soon as his phone flashes. He goes from prim and respectable to raving in a matter of seconds. When his nose begins to bleed, he rushes over to Chris and tells him, "Get out of here. Get out while you still have the chance." Rose has also becoming agitated. When she asks her father what happened, he explains that the man had a seizure as a result of the flash. The man emerges, apologizing for upsetting everyone and stating that he must return home. Chris and Rose go for a walk, and Chris informs Rose that he believes he recognized the man and that something unusual is happening. She agrees, stating that it did not appear to be a seizure. Chris expresses his want to return home right now. Rose grudgingly accepts the offer. She claims she will fabricate a story to tell her parents. Back at the mansion, Dean is holding a silent auction for his visitors, who are bidding using bingo cards. There's a photo of Chris next to him. The auction is won by Jim Hudson. All of the other visitors have left. As Chris begins to pack his possessions, he receives a call from Rod, who informs him that the man in the photograph is a man named Dre, who used to work at a movie theater but has been gone for some weeks. The phone's battery runs out. The closet door is open, which Chris observes. When he looks inside, he discovers a package containing images of Rose posing lovingly with a number of other black men. There are also images of her with Walter and Georgina, who are nothing like the robotic versions Chris has encountered. After all, Chris isn't the first black man Rose has ever dated. When Rose returns, Chris informs her that he requires the keys in order to load their luggage into the car. As they go out of the house, she searches her purse for them. Jeremy arrives out of nowhere, blocking the front entrance. Dean and Missy are also present. Missy and Dean warn Jeremy to calm down before he attacks. Chris constantly telling Rose that she needs to go fetch the keys. Chris is told that Missy and Dean do not want him to leave. "You know I can't give you the keys," Rose answers calmly when Chris requests for the keys again. Chris finally learns that Rose is also a part of whatever is going on. She gets attacked by Jeremy, and sinks back into the dark nothingness after Dean yells and Missy clinks the teaspoon on her glass. Meanwhile, Rod continues to attempt to contact Chris, but his calls go straight to voicemail. He searches up the photo of the man in the photo and discovers that he has been missing for some time, so he contacts the authorities. He tells a female officer that his son, like the missing man in the photo, was kidnapped by white people and forced to work as a sex slave. She summons 2 additional officers to hear Rod's story. They all busted out laughing when he finished. No one is going to take him seriously. Chris is strapped to a chair in front of a mounted deer head and an antique TV set as he wakes up. He sees a film prepared by Dean's father about immortality and other topics. Chris notices that his fingernails have pierced the leather arm of the chair, exposing the padding beneath. On the screen, the teacup and spoon reappear. He's out with a ting, ting, ting. Rod dials Chris's number again, and Rose picks up. She lies when she says Chris left 2 days ago and that she is worried about his whereabouts. He allegedly fled in a cab or possibly an Uber, according to her. Rod informs her that he has gone to the police station, and she appears anxious. When he realizes something is wrong, he tries to record the call, but when he reintroduces himself to her, she informs him that she knows he has feelings for her. He hangs up after telling her she's a crazy knucklehead. When Chris first wakes up, he notices Jim Hudson on the television. They're going to switch brains, he says Chris. The other guests at the party were all about being black, but Jim couldn't care less. What he truly desires is to be able to see the world through Chris's eyes. Dean has perfected the neurosurgery that allows all of this to happen. Missy also prepares the body donors for the process by hypnotizing them. He'll remain in the dark emptiness, but as a passenger, he'll be able to travel through it. As they observe during the party, the flashing is an unwelcome side effect. Chris is out again with a ting 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 of the teaspoon. Jim Hudson is preparing for a brain transplant when Dean and Jeremy arrive. Dean instructs Jeremy to locate Chris. We now know they were in the basement of the house, so Jeremy runs down the hall and finds Chris unconscious. He removes his cuffs and prepares an IV. Chris wasn't unconscious after all. He'd shoved chair padding in his ears to drown out the teaspoon sound. Jeremy is knocked unconscious by him. Dean dials Jeremy's number and leaves the lab to find him. Chris rushes up to him and impales him with the deer antlers he found in the other room. He knocks over a candle, which flames the blanket that Jim Hudson is wrapped in. Rose is wearing headphones and is completely unaware of what is going on. She is searching for photographs of attractive black men with good physiques while listening to music. Missy is upstairs, so Chris walks upstairs to find her. She reaches for the teacup and spoon, but Chris arrives first and smashes the cup. She assaults him with a knife instead, but he turns the weapon on her and stabs her to death. Chris attempts to open the front door once more, but Jeremy intercepts him and places him in a chokehold. Chris tries to open the front door twice, but Jeremy kicks it shut both times. Chris stabs Jeremy in the leg and smashes his skull with vicious head stomps on the third try, while Jeremy kicks the door. He dashes outside and enters Jeremy's vehicle. The medieval helmet from before sits on the passenger seat. He begins to walk down the driveway, but collides with Georgina. He can't leave her lying there like he did his mother, so he loads her into the car and drives down the driveway. She comes to and attacks him as soon as she wakes up. Her wig falls off in the process, and we notice she has a scar across her head after a brain transplant. They collide with a tree and she perishes. This is what Rose hears via her earbuds. The rear view mirror is suddenly blasted away. Chris is being pursued by Rose, who is armed with a rifle. He implores her to stop, but she notices Georgina and calls her grandma. Rose takes another shot and misses Chris. Walter appears out of nowhere, chasing Chris, and Rose yells, "Get him, Grandpa," as he tackles Chris. On the ground, they wrestle and Chris snaps a photo of him. Flash. Walter then turns to Rose and asks for her firearm. He shoots her in the stomach before turning the weapon on himself after she delivers it to him. Rose is dripping blood on the ground. She reaches for the weapon, but Chris deflects it. Rose places her hand on Chris's cheek and tells him that she loves him as he bends over her. Chris begins to choke Rose, but stops because he is unable to complete the task. A police car approaches. Rose begs for help weakly, knowing that the local cops will arrest Chris. But it's Rod who emerges from the police cruiser. Chris enters the vehicle. "Man, I told you not to go in that house," Rod says, looking around at the commotion. Rod explains that he works with the TSA and that everything will be okay when Chris wonders how he discovered him. As Rod and Chris drive away into the darkness, Rose grins with her dying breath. Rod drives Chris away from the scene as Rose lies dead in the road at the end of the movie. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like the video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to the channel to see more of these movie summaries. See you on another video.